And we're live.
And we are live.
Gonna start with some Ice Cube ASMR.
Gonna start with some coffee pouring into my blood vessels.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. The alkaloids. How's it going?
Yes.
What episode is
How's
this?
it going? I'm pretty sure it's 39.
39. Really?
Yeah, right?
Wow.
39.
Welcome to episode 39. We have a quote here for everyone's
quote.
listening pleasure.
Yeah.
And the quote is, quote, "Who else is the enemy of nature but he who mistakes himself for more intelligent than nature, though it is the highest school for all of us?" That is
Nice.
Paracelsus.
Paracelsus, Mr. Paracelsus.
I'll say it again. Okay, who is the enemy of
Please
nature
do.
but he who mistakes himself for more intelligent than nature, though it is the highest school for all of us?
He's placing a very important question here, Mr. Paracelsus, right?
Yeah, Paracelsus.
He is basically communicating an idea that he fought with for almost his entire life. And I don't know why I said that. I don't know that. I don't know that.
Okay. What does that mean?
Well, this quote is actually dealing with a very important aspect of philosophy. And it goes very deep into the biggest rabbit hole. And, you know, for me to just go into that would be a waste of time, basically.
Okay.
Because this quote allows for a very intricate and step-by-step process, psychological cognitive process that arrives at a very specific truth. That's why it's not only a quote, it's also it's a question. Quote question. You know? But before I get ahead of myself, you know, I shall ask you if you can, Mr. Answer Guy, maybe attempt to Mr. Answer Guy this quest. Tion. Quest Scion.
Quest Ion, yeah. Well, he's talking about, like, the main danger in here is the people who mistake themselves for more intelligent than nature. That's the main it's the main idea.
Beware of these guys.
Beware of these guys and don't do this. And that he's saying that the highest school, that nature is the highest school. And I think that that's accurate. I mean, there's something to be said about nature has tested itself over. When we think about nature, we're talking about the natural world. I know there's like arguments of like, we're nature and buildings are nature. They're a natural evolution of our technology and the things that we've created and what's not and what is nature. I get that. But I think in this context, we're talking about the natural world. So the animal and plant kingdom, and just imagining our separation to some degree, but not even that much. Paracelsus, as the father of medicine, I think is talking about nature also within us, our cells, our biological systems.
Yeah.
But it's like these. I think there's something to be said about even trees or anything that's evolved over so much time, millions of years, in some cases billones of years.
Yeah.
You're seeing things tested against the environment. And so it's almost like something becomes more true over time or more accurate. It's like the way that these systems are working for these organisms, like they work so good. They're so intricate. there's so much beauty and design, and like you see Fibonacci ratio, and you see, you know, golden spiral, and you see
Yeah. Fractal
these
patterns.
fractal patterns, and you see these
Yeah,
things
yeah.
where you're like, wow, like we have, like, there's so much to learn. I think there is so much to learn in beauty, and the nation, and the notion that these things have evolved so much over time that they've like tested themselves, and they've become more accurate and more true in terms of their ability to live in the environment of the world. And that's where we live in the world, and those, and so I think we can learn a lot for how things have evolved in their design and in their functioning
Mm-hmm.
processes, um, and in the systems, in their systems, microcosm and macrocosm systems of these things, and that we can learn from them. That's what I think is at
Yeah.
the root of the, and obviously not the evolutionary argument, because this would have been pre um, evolutionary theory.
Yeah. So Mr. Paracelsus is talking to people around the world that are basically searching for information, truth, wisdom, knowledge, patterns, and this guy is saying, "Hey, you don't need to look anywhere else but nature itself."
Mm-hmm.
And
It's a good
if
starting point, and it's a good, if you're starting to deviate from the truths that are within nature, then maybe you are on the wrong track. I think maybe it's also a good testing mechanism.
mhm, yes, and if you observe the patterns of nature, then a higher, I shouldn't say higher, an underlying intelligence appears or um, shows itself. And
Define
maybe,
intelligence in this context.
let's say, as you mentioned, for example, Fibonacci, something like divine properties. Um, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
something like sacred geometry or even math that is now used for big and complex engineering can be
Right.
developed out of a circle, right? So,
Right. But don't you think that those things are derived from the patterns in nature, and that those phenomena aren't necessarily an intelligence in nature, but a repetitive pattern that succeeds within our with, like, we have a system. We have a, let's imagine the laws of physics, Newtonian laws of physics are just like, they're permanent and
yeah,
they're accurate and they're whatever. So you've got rules. You've got rules for limitations, for you've got rules.
yeah,
And then within those rules, things that succeed are going to look similar because they have a same set of rules. And if you're going to be successful within that set of rules, you're going to get similar results that become successful over time. I just repeated myself. I just said the same thing twice. But what I'm
yeah,
saying is that like Fibonacci and stuff like that, we are the ones that apply intelligence to say, wow, look at what's emerged across all of these different systems.
hmm.
But I don't think it implies that, and now we're getting into a different combo, but I just wanted to,
We could be getting into now defining intelligence and what I meant when I
yes,
put it in a sentence. Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to clarify, I guess, my thoughts on the prevalence of similar patterns like the Fibonacci sequence and stuff in nature, and what I think that implies. And I don't
Yeah.
think and I guess I'm just speaking personally, but I don't think that that implies an intelligent, necessarily like an intelligent design. It's like these things are working within the same framework and the same rules, and they're evolved slowly over time, and it makes sense that if you've got a set of rules, then the things that are successful are going to emerge with a similar pattern or with a similar with similar attributes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
I agree.
but
We shouldn't draw any conclusions on the patterns necessarily. And if by intelligence revealing itself through the patterns, I meant that there's some a different or alternative source of
right,
intelligence. I
an
didn't mean that.
external,
Yeah, or an external source that it's not,
right.
because I think what you arrive basically at, um, I guess, recognizing the same patterns in yourself and others. So basically, you maybe stop considering yourself as separate from nature. And
Right.
I just wanted to add to that that not all patterns are the same. If you look, for example, at just maybe kind of a not so complex example, but the pattern that allows a crystal to exist, a quartz, let's say,
Sure.
it's not the same pattern that that creates a rock. There are, I guess, very from first sight very different structures, and but you could
The
also argue that it's the same geometry, just goes from simple to complex. Or as we
and
were
the
talking about the last episode, the attempting to boil consciousness down to four to four
right.
categories.
Yeah.
It's all connected, but
I think
the complexity is different.
the crazy thing about stuff like Fibonacci is like it's not just that the patterns emerge within similar environments on Earth. Like, oh, these things have similar evolutionary pressure, and they evolve to have similar responses and adaptations, and so you could say that those adaptations are becoming more accurate in terms of like a solution to the environmental pressure, the problem that the environment presents.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is that, okay, but you find Fibonacci sequence or like the pattern in the macrocosm. You see it in galaxy. You see it in, the spiral galaxy follows that same ratio and pattern. And that's crazy. Then that's like, okay, well then the common underpinnings of those things would be, I guess, the new, like what we understand now, I guess, of the Newtonian laws of physics.
Yeah. Have you seen
But
that? Sorry. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, like, there is a wave where it's like, okay, we're not saying that there was an external force that that was designing these patterns within the emergence of life on Earth, and all these complexities and things working perfectly in their environment and the same patterns we see everywhere. It's like, okay, you can say that, but then it's like it's pushing the ball back. It's like eventually you're still going back to, okay, well, how did the rules come about? How did the Newtonian laws come about? Are they just
Yeah.
an emergence of everything coming into existence at once, and it was a roll of the dice, and those are the laws that emerge, and that because of those laws, then it's dominoes and cause and effect, and we see these patterns emerge in nature because they're just a response to those laws, and everything is chance, chance destiny. But that's a different wave, and that will always just end up going back to free miracle.
Yeah.
But
Sorry.
um, that's okay.
Apologies.
That's okay.
He wants to make an appearance. She wants to make an appearance. Anyway.
But I do like. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was gonna do. I was gonna
Finishing
propose
the thought.
a new wave.
Okay.
You go. I'll hold. I can remember this. I can hold on to this.
I was just riffing off from what you were saying. Gonna add that we tend to think of nature as green leafy stuff, but the quote can actually be like as big as you want it to be, because you could make the point that everything is nature or comes from nature or can be traced back to nature. So we're all nature.
Yeah.
And
The only thing that isn't nature would, I guess, be what's known as supernatural.
Okay.
Which
I'm listening. which covers what kind of phenomena?
Well, phenomena that seems unnatural. And so then there's a dichotomy of like, okay, natural is
right. So
everything,
then I think
and
that
then
proves
supernatural is like, oh, we can't explain it.
Yes,
It's
and
like,
I think that proves what I think about what you're saying on the Newtonian law, the dilemma, I guess. I think our current laws of the universe.
what was the Newtonian law dilemma that I proposed?
Did you not recall doing that?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it was a dilemma.
You don't know what I'm interpreting. That you, yeah, I guess dilemma wasn't the thing. So, anyway, not counter arguing against anything. I was just thinking that. I was just thinking that, okay, our current laws are not necessarily the actual laws of the universe. They're a map, and is as close, as close as recent history allows us to be to understanding the laws of the universe. So the supernatural would only be something that doesn't fall within our current map.
Right.
But then that would expand the map if discovered to be factual.
Right. Yes. Like, for instance, cells, or until a microscope, and this is kind of like alluding to the medical side of Paracelsus. But I mean, we used to believe that illnesses was due to spirits and evil spirits, fighting your spiritual bodies and stuff like that. And then you get a microscope and you look and you're like, oh my gosh, there's all these little creatures, and then you start thinking, well, what are they carrying? These are the spirits, maybe. These are the evil spirits. Maybe they, can infect stuff. And so then you're like, okay, well, that's supernatural, but now it's just natural. So it's like
mythology becomes science.
Yes. So what's crazy is that supernatural is just the natural of the future. It's like,
or a version of it. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, if you looked throughout history, the trend is that supernatural slowly becomes understood and becomes just a part of nature. And that's kind of a crazy trend, because it's like we can't assume that we're at any kind of stage where we finished that pattern.
Yes, exactly.
We can't assume that like, okay, well,
The
now
map
we're
is
here.
finished.
Look, we have iPhones. We've of course, there's no more supernatural.
You can
We've
access
mastered
Wikipedia at any time you want.
we've mastered the physical world. We understand we're the masters of manipulating the physical and our interpretation of the material. We're amazing at
We are masters of
analyzing.
mystery,
We're masters
and
of
there's no
mystery.
mysteries left.
There's no more
Only
mysteries.
conspiracy theories.
Yes. Mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, dude, I think understanding this is the like one of the most satisfactory arguments for free speech that I've met. Which is
Okay, what's the connection here?
which is like, even if you're talking about how the universe works, which
Yes.
we have supposedly mastered, right? Even that,
Yeah.
you can't pretend that you know it all, that you've
No.
got it all
Yeah.
figured out. So at least that understanding, I think, can appeal to most people as to nothing should be censored. We should all have open information until so that the map of understanding continues to develop in the right direction.
Yeah,
So
a
why
lot of
aren't we all in
truths.
that same page, or are we?
A lot of
Yeah.
truths that we know have come about because of fringe ideas and people on the sidelines of orthodox thought. But at the same time, a lot of horrible things have come from people who said they had the truth, but they were completely out of touch with reality. And
Yeah.
it's a double-edged sword, I would say.
And I would say
where
that's fine.
there are crazy good ideas that impact
Mm-hmm.
the world, and there are crazy bad ideas that have completely decimated the world
Yeah.
in many different aspects. So I think it's the, yeah, it's, I mean, I'm trying to relate this to the concept of natural world and, but yeah, it's like you got to take, well, here's a good, another Paracelsus idea or quote, and I think that the translation is sometimes, there's always different translations, but this
Nice,
translation,
Let's hear it.
translation goes as follows, and it's that poison is in everything, and no thing is without poison. The dosage makes either a poison or a remedy. So I think there is so that's the dose makes the poison idea.
Yeah.
And I think that there you can make a relation here of like, you need to allow people to have crazy ideas and be on the fringe, but you also need to have ideas of what that's the idea of like, okay, you have the known and you have the unknown, and you need to have a strong known framework of reality and allow unknowns to continue to be there and be confronting them with at the maximum level that you can without dissolving into chaos or allowing your reality frameworks to totally crumble. And I think that there is maybe this is a big leap, but I'm trying to relate that to this quote, which is like, you can have a small dose of fringe without dissolving or completely breaking your framework of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's medicine. And that
Yeah.
that you need that's useful. I don't know. Maybe that's a horrible. I still think there's more to investigate in the natural world as a teacher conversation.
And I'm glad you brought up the second Paracelsus quote, um, because I think it relates
ASMR.
perfectly. So again, apologies because Dharma needs some love here. Oh,
That's
you need some
okay.
love, baby. Um, the dosage thing, I
Yeah.
think, I think can be equated to truth. So there are, as we've kind of mentioned or discussed before,
Is too
there
much truth poison?
it could be for certain organisms, I guess. And similarly, I guess also
I
there's,
don't understand that. How?
well, truth can be painful. Paradigm shifts can be sometimes,
I see.
um,
Got it.
yeah, chaos creating
Got it.
events.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, I guess. Anything anything in excess can be harmful.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I'm actually taking that back. I don't necessarily think that truth can be harmful, even if it's at a high dose,
Mm-hmm.
because it
I also,
if it
yeah.
doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger.
Well, that's, yeah, and that's part of the idea, I think, of this concept is that what's considered to be poison at a low enough dose can be beneficial. And I think that that can translate to, look, even bad ideas, even if they are completely incorrect and crazy and harmful, even a small amount of those to bring into a discourse allows for the clarifying of arguments that and thinking that decimate that quote unquote poison. And it's like, if you, and to take it in a like a medical sense, and this is so, well, not medical, but in this, in metaphor,
Mm-hmm.
if you took a very very small amount of poison, like you said, it's not good. The thing itself is quite harmful, but at a small enough amount, your system is forced to figure out a way to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's almost, in a sense, you could argue it's activating very beneficial parts of your physiology as a response. It's like testing your beneficial systems with something that, like, you need to activate the beneficial systems with something. Otherwise, they could become, um, what's the word? Docile, or they could become like a
Also
killer
docile.
whale. Like a killer whale in captivity, its fin
Okay.
will,
Will
you
bend.
know,
Mm-hmm.
will bend because it doesn't need to use it. And so it's like, if
Mm-hmm.
you are, and so in a concept of like, okay, let's imagine that your healing system, or your systems that deal with harmful things in your body, that system is something you would like to have and something you would like to stay, like the immune system, something you would like to have strong and so functioning properly. If you, and this is trying to connect the metaphor that you made about ideas and about um, uh, discourse and allowing ideas completely, it's like, okay, well, then if your rational systems, let's imagine that your rational argument creating, truth generating, framework creating mechanisms are the immune system. And ideas coming into that, no matter how harmful, are testing the immune system, and you need to maintain that test so that you can respond with you're activated to be like, well, no, that's crazy, and here's why. You're activated to take a an animated action against it, to formulate your ideas, to clarify your position about reality, to
Mm-hmm.
and that is a positive scenario, and maybe you could argue a necessary scenario, and
Yeah.
that would be extrapolating the metaphor of of the poison acting as a medicine, no matter how poisonous that idea potentially is, maybe. Um, so I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
You could also say that you don't know if a substance will work as medicine until you have tried many different dosages. Um, so I can't really think of a specific substance right now, but I'm sure there is one out there where they tried at low doses and eventually at a high dose they
Yeah,
discovered, yes, it works, right?
I believe it's called the dose response curve, but maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
Sure, that makes
But
sense.
but I think
Okay,
the dose response curve is like this.
like a bell
It's
curve.
like a bell. Yeah, you get some benefit, you get more benefit and then you get maximum benefit, and then you actually get diminishing benefit at higher doses. And I think that
Mm,
I believe that that's the case. I could be totally wrong, but I think that that's
yeah.
fairly common with a lot of things. Um,
And so I was
and
just gonna draw a parallel to that, to from
yes,
that to the the pattern recognition map that we were talking about. And
nice.
just thinking that if your map is flawed, you're probably gonna need some sort of event that triggers either a paradigm shift, a cognitive, profoundly uh, transformative cognitive process, or something that turns order into chaos so
Hmm.
that you get to order it back and I guess improve the map, right? So, but
Hmm.
amnesia, memory loss is a fundamental aspect of our our existence, and so maybe, and I don't know, I've personally feel this to be true. We encounter truths or very important pieces of the puzzle,
Yeah.
or VIPs, very important patterns.
Uh huh.
You encounter them, and it's like
Yeah.
you didn't even see them, you didn't process them. It
Right.
was right there in front of you, but you
Yeah.
needed 3 more years to go back to that quote and be like,
Yes.
whoa, like this. I don't know, just a
Dude. Yeah.
simple example, but
An example is that is a book. Read a book you haven't read in
yes,
10 years and tell me it's not a completely different book.
that's it.
Yeah.
And then you'll probably forget that.
Yeah.
And why is that? Why do we forget things? Is that
Yeah.
some sort of pragmatic tool instead of instead of something that we see as detrimental? Is that,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like, who's the person within you that's deciding what is so important that you have to remember it? And if it's not you, then what is it? And how can
yeah,
you make it? And how can you make it you if it's not? Because I think so often, like you said, you'll find something and you're like, wow, this is profound. You have an emotional response. You're like, this is important. And then a week later, I mean, it's totally outside your mind. It doesn't matter. But it's like, okay, well, your consciousness, your experiential ego consciousness recognize that as something
It already
important.
recognized that as something valuable. Why
Yes.
then? Yeah.
Why then who in you, what part of you was like, nah, you don't need that yet? Like, aren't you the one that was like, no, make store this one. This one's important. Um yes.
Mystery question right there.
I also, so there's a lot of avenues, and we are broaching, we're at 35 minutes here.
Hmm.
I wanted to propose before I forgot about it a wave regarding the um, natural patterns, or the using nature as a teacher. And I think I might forget what I was going with this, but I think that there was an obsession with Neoplatonic notions, I think, of harmony and um, the patterns of nature, and the obsession with aligning everything you do with those patterns. And that's where like design, and that's where building was like, we need to build this building using the Fibonacci whatever, because the proportions are in harmony with the natural world. And there was this idea that, you know, not only would the structure be more secure and last longer, which is true, which happens, but it's like, no, not only that, what, like, there was an obsession with living in harmony, not necessarily like what we think of these days as living in harmony. These days, I think we think of like this environmental notion of living in harmony, like recycling and all and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is like living in harmony, like resonate by the patterns of your life somehow aligning. And I don't totally know how to articulate this argument, but does that make sense? Like, I think there's something there that I think is quite powerful, and
Yeah.
I think we have separated to some degree in the way our scientific mindset is using modeling and software and artificial intelligence and our own intellect to design things in ways that we think are best. And a lot of the times I believe that the results of those, because they're working within the constraints of Newtonian physics and the laws, that they are going to naturally, pun intended, come to solutions that are similar to what occurred in nature. But I do think that that a focus on starting from nature, starting from how can we mimic certain things and how can we design things from this standpoint. And a lot of people do that, and a lot of industries do that. But I think that is, there's a part of me that romanticizes that and thinks that maybe there would result in more benefit in many different ways if that was a more prioritized approach.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
there's that conversation about, I guess, our society and the things we focus on, and the direction of our uh, raising of our intellect above what we consider to be nature, and our obsession with our intellect, and the
Yes.
omniscience
Yes.
there.
I also
But then also,
would.
just quickly, and then
Sure.
also the conversation of our personal life and the idea of harmonizing, and that's a different way of it. And so that's the summarizing those two ways.
I think the word harmonizing is on point here, because apart from our overly one direction obsession with, I guess, the intellect, there's definitely a lack of focus on the power of sound, cymatics, and how the physical manifestations of sound and resonance, and the technological applications. It goes into, like, obviously not an expert here, but I've seen some examples of levitation through resonance that is really mind-blowing. And I do think that, like, I'm not saying there's a reason why we don't learn the basics of that in school. We don't have, like, a lot of funding publicly going into that sort of technology. So it's either because I'm making that like a video I saw of, like, I don't know, a piece of metal levitating with sound, and it's just, that's just it. There's nothing else to see here. Or there's, like, maybe some protection going on of that type of technology.
I don't think there's any kind of like conspiracy there. It's just like, what? How useful is that in school? Like, why do you think that that would be useful? I mean, school in general, and this is a different wave, but I think is to prepare you for workforce, for corporate life,
Exactly.
for
Yeah.
So why would you try to levitate metal with resonance? That's not gonna. I agree that, like,
Sure.
education
Now,
at
if you
school
understand,
should,
if they're preparing you to
yeah,
9 to 5 press buttons and follow orders, I guess
yeah.
like, a lot of things wouldn't make sense to be taught there.
Like, I
But
don't
my
think
only
you could.
point is that, I don't know, I think, seems to me like there's a big aspect of sound that we're not using to its fullest potential. Like, even chanting is something that has tremendous benefits, and it's still kind of like a fringe idea that you can create healing frequencies that have tremendous benefit. I mean, healing is still, again, a kind of like a fringe producing word, like a new age woo woo type of energy thing.
Yeah, but I don't think you're saying that these frequencies are inherently healing. You're talking about a human behavior with an intention of outcome, repeating that thing for an outcome, and making that pattern work in that way, or making that behavior work in that way. Or are you saying that these frequencies you are going to chant, and then they're inherently healing, and they resonate with the vibratory nature of your atoms in your body, and they harmonize them and heal?
Depends exactly on what you mean by heal. But I'm inferring that there are some frequencies, specifically some frequencies, that have different effects than others. And that
What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
Sure,
On human.
your intention and setting will always matter, but there are specific frequencies and notes even
Yep.
that seem to have a more perceivable effect on practitioners around the world. And so practitioners around the world will tell other practitioners, like, this is definitely more efficient than this thing. And I'm just saying, maybe there's something to that. Not an expert here again.
I don't think.
My
Can you be an expert in that?
my whole argument seems to me it's like the tip of an iceberg here. Yeah.
I agree that there are things we don't know about the patterns that the patterns that emerge in the physical world, whether it's frequencies of sound or light or patterns that are
Electric or magnetic.
electric or magnetic. I think
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of that we don't understand. We don't understand. I mean, I think you can end the
Sure.
sentence there.
Even
Um,
I'm just gonna say this so badly, and
yeah.
I shouldn't even. Anyway, the you can please correct me if you know this in a more accurate manner. But the experiment that shook the world, and I remember seeing this in the "What the Bleep Do You Know" film like 15 years ago. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So the
That
experiment, they
is
were like
the most
throwing
pseudoscience-y film.
particles,
Uh huh.
and they were throwing it's either a wave particle or a linear particle,
Yeah.
something like that. And
This
the
is the
thing
the
was
double slit
behaving
experiment.
differently. Sorry?
This is the double slit experiment that's
Yes,
used
thank
by
you.
many people
Yes,
to
this is what I'm trying to
extrapolate
explain.
to
Yes.
mean so many things that you can't extrapolate it to mean.
Exactly. It is
It's the number one
mind
thing
blowing,
used.
right? It is
It
like
is mind blowing, but we it
people
like
don't know what to make
just
of it. Is
of
this is what I'm
course, yeah.
saying?
It's
Yeah.
just, it's another aspect of quantum physics that we don't understand. But I think
Yes.
where we get in trouble, which happens everywhere, especially in the new agey spiritual healing movement,
Yeah.
is they take it and then they extrapolate it and be like, this means that
Yeah.
all of these things, and then we're
Sure.
gonna actually implement it to have a certain result. And
But
I
is
think
it
that
safe
it's
to say is this a conclusion or is this an accurate observation that the particle was behaving differently when it was observed than when it wasn't? So an observer changed the behavior of the particle.
yeah. Have I don't fully understand. I am not a quantum physicist. I haven't read and really interpreted the actual study. All I've seen are little movies from people with music trying to tell me that it's very amazing and profound. I
Yes.
haven't read the paper. I
Okay.
haven't read people recreate that study. I haven't considered what it actually means. I don't think that I can make statements about it. I do know that there are very many strange studies that involve the quantum level,
Yeah.
but there's a zero amount of extrapolation that I feel
But
justified in
again,
doing
right?
from any of
Tip
those.
of an iceberg.
Yeah,
It
I mean,
is
quantum is like
scratching the surface.
yeah, it's like, and I think Terrence McKenna talked about this. It's like using the scientific tools of materialism. The better they got and the further down they went, the more it exploded, blew up, and canceled out the insights. And I think that that's a very funny kind of concept. It's like, look, you get a microscope. Okay, we get this. We understand atoms. Okay, let's keep going. Better microscope, electron microscope. You keep going, and then all of a sudden, none of it makes sense anymore. None
Yeah.
of your um, models,
Previous maps.
previous maps, all of them are out the window.
Yeah.
And I think that it's funny, not just that at that level it blows up, but it's like the processes and the instruments that were working. It's like, oh, it's working. More insights. It's working. All the model makes sense, and then it's just gone, and it's like we don't understand anything anymore at this level, and I do think that that's that's crazy, and there's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
There's a lot of mysteries out there. So
There
much to
are.
discover. I mean, there's famous Seneca quote. It goes something like, "I will train my 1%. I would." Why do I always do this? I should never again try to quote someone if I don't have the. Anyway, this is what we do, guys.
Yeah.
This is our thing. The core idea is we know probably not even 1% of what's out there. So
Yeah, we don't. I don't think we know
not even 0.001.
very much. Yeah.
Then that was an accurate number, by the way.
0.01 is.
It is accurate.
Accurate. Well, I think there's a lot of waves here that we could take, that we could go down. I would like to explore. I'm personally very interested, so I'm biased in this way. I'm personally interested in the concepts of considering patterns in nature and figuring out ways to take action, live in ways, test ideas, test hypotheses and concepts that harmonize with those patterns and with natural insights that have evolved to their level of efficacy. And yeah, and I would like, and there's a lot to go down there.
There's a big wave there for sure. My recap is basically yeah, that's it.
Nice.
That's it.
Sometimes that says more.
Things are better left unsaid.
Agreed.
If what you're gonna say doesn't improve upon the silence that is being enjoyed at the moment, you shouldn't disrupt the sound of silence that is beautiful syrup for the soul.
And we will have the syrup of silence for another week, and I look forward to making sound out of the silence in a week's time.
In a week's
going into 39?
The 40th.
40th. Wow.
40th
okay.
dimension.
Right on, we're going to 40th dimension.
Going
Thank
into
you,
the
sir.
quantum realm. Thank you, brother man.